Welcome to FNAF the card game. Today we'll be explaining the rules. This will just be a quick guide to help you get started if you're looking to get into the game quickly. For more rules, you can check the rulebook. So, to start the game, each player is going to need a 30-card deck. If this is your first time playing, there are pre-made decks located here on the table. In the future, there will be more tutorial videos explaining more in-depth how the various decks are designed to play. If you are particularly new to card games or just want to learn the ropes of this game, there is a tutorial deck. Once you've pulled the deck the deck you desire out of your bag, you will go ahead and place it here on the deck zone. You're then going to go to this set of tiles here. And each player is going to select 2 tiles out of this pile. These tiles are guaranteed to appear on the map during the game. So, for now, I'm going to take the top 2 here. And I'll take another top 2 for the other player. Once you've got all of the tiles for all the players out, you're going to make sure they are not in a stack. They are 4 separate tiles. You're then going to select all of them with your cursor and click the Set Up Rooms button. If I can do it correctly. Let's see here. This will then distribute all the tiles to form your map. Now that you've done this, you are ready to play. To start the game, you should have your most experienced player click on the Start Clicker button here on the turn tracker. If everyone is well-versed in the game, or if no one knows what's going on, you can instead click the Start Random button to have a random player begin the game. Once you do this, the turn tracker will move next to the current turn player and will inform them that it is their turn, and they can click End Turn to pass it to the next player. The tracker does have a timer underneath it, however this is used primarily in tournament play and can be safely ignored while playing casually. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to draw 5 cards from their deck. This can be done by hovering your cursor over your deck and pressing the number 5 on your keyboard. So, first player is going to take their turn. A turn consists of 5 phases: the camera phase, the deployment phase, the spell phase, the unit phase, and finally the discard phase. First, the camera phase. During the camera phase, you will automatically lose 2% of your battery, and then you will discover a room. Your battery is both your health and the currency you will spend on units and spells while playing the game. In order to discover a room, you will mouse over the room you wish to discover and press F. To discover a room, it must be adjacent to a room that you have already discovered. After your camera phase, you will then move to your deployment phase. During your deployment phase, you may deploy as many units as you wish in one turn, as long as you may legally do so. The requirements to legally deploy a unit is that you must have a room to deploy it in, and you must not be exceeding your size limit. Your size limit is listed here. For most units, you can deploy in your office. All units can be deployed in your office. However, some additional rooms, such as this Roxy Raceway, may allow you to deploy more units there. In order to deploy a unit, you will drag it from your hand and drop it on this white zone here. The table will automatically deduct the battery cost of the unit from your battery supply and place the unit in your office. If you wish to deploy the unit in a room other than your office, simply pick up and drag the unit to its relevant room. If the unit's having its cost modified by an effect or room, for instance this Roxy Raceway decreases the cost of playing Roxy, you will need to manually edit your battery as well. In order to locate the cost of a unit as well as its size on the card, you may check the number next to the battery icon is how much battery the unit will cost, and the size is displayed at the bottom right hand of the card. Additionally, looking at the size tracker, most sizes are displayed. However, there is a size called Gargantuan. Gargantuan units count as being a single large and a single medium unit. Next up, after your deployment phase, you'll go to your spell phase. In your spell phase, you may play spells. However, there are a few different types of spells, and I've got a few of them in my hand here. Spells can have one of 4 different kinds of effects. Preparations. Preparations may be played during your spell phase and only during your spell phase. There's also instants. Instant spells may be played, and I guess instant effects may be played at any point, including during opponents' turns. There's also combo effects. Combo spells can only be played if another spell's effect has already been played during the same spell phase. And then finally, counter effects. Counter effects will occur, or more accurately can be triggered, if the effect that the counter specifies would occur. So, for instance, here on the Joy of Creation is if an enemy unit is deployed. In order to play a spell, you will simply drag it onto your spell zone, just like a unit. This will automatically deduct the cost and send it to your graveyard, at which point you will then resolve the spell's effects. If you are playing a spell for an effect besides its main effect, usually its preparation, it may have an increased or decreased cost. If that is the case, you will need to manually edit your battery. So I'm going to play the first, and then I'm going to combo it with Twisted Visage to discard a card and draw 2. And that is the end of the spell phase. After your spell phase, you'll move on to your unit phase. This is when you're able to move, attack, and use your unit's abilities. It is worth noting that the first turn a unit is deployed, it may not move, attack, or use any of its abilities, unless the ability specifically says otherwise, such as certain abilities that will say, when this unit is deployed, do X effect. It is worth noting there is an ability in the game that allows the unit to move and attack on its first turn. This ability is called Rush. On the cards themselves, there is a circle with several arrows pointing out and a number next to it. This is the unit's movement. A unit may move up to its movement number of rooms per turn. So Roxy here has 3 movement, so I could go 1, 2, 3. That would be her movement. Units may move orthogonally only. They may not move diagonally. In addition, the figurines themselves also display the movement, shown here in this green number. There are various rooms within the game, and various rooms can have various effects. So here we've got a good spread of rooms. We've got Roxy Raceway, which we've shown off a little bit already. This room is a deployment room, allowing you to deploy the named unit Roxy in this room. There's also rooms that rely on certain tribes or certain games. Each unit card will have its tribe shown in the top right-hand side of the card with a small black icon. If you're curious which icons mean which tribes, those can be found near the end of the rulebook. In addition, in the bottom left, the unit's game will be shown. So, for instance, this Burned Pizzeria allows any unit from the game Pizzeria Simulator to be deployed here. Some rooms are effect rooms instead, such as this basement. The basement can be used to recover a unit from your graveyard at a battery cost. In order to use a room that has an effect similar to the basement, you will need to have a unit standing in that room either at the beginning of its movement or the end of its movement. During the unit phase, combat is also very likely to occur. In order to attack an enemy unit, your unit must be orthogonally adjacent to them. So, I would need to move my Roxy to here, and then I could attack my enemy's Twisted Foxy. When you attack, all combat occurs simultaneously, and when you attack, you will subtract your unit's attack, shown in orange here, from your enemy unit's health, shown in red, and you will do the same thing for the enemy's attack and your health. In order to subtract a value, right-click on the indicated number. All numbers work identically. In case you ever need to modify any other number on the unit as well, left-click increases the shown number, and right-click decreases the shown number. If, during combat, any unit would have its HP reduced to 0, or its health, you are going to destroy the unit. In order to destroy a unit, right-click the unit, and click the Destroy button. This will send it back to the bag, at which point you will then need to manually move the unit's card from your white zone here into your graveyard. Additionally, when a unit destroys another unit, you will gain Siphon based on how large the destroyed unit was. So in this case, the unit I destroyed, Twisted Foxy, was a medium. So I would gain 2% battery. For a small, you would gain 1% battery. For a medium, you gain 2% battery. For a large, you gain 3% battery. For a gargantuan, you gain 4%. And for a beyond, you gain 5%. Additionally, you can attack other things other than the units. Your units can also attack the enemy office. In order to do so, let's pull out Roxy again and hypothetically say I hadn't destroyed her. You will notice each unit has a AOA listed on the card. This is angle of attack. In order to attack the enemy's office, first, your unit must be standing in the shown room. In this case, Roxy attacks from the right hall, which means she would need to be standing here. Additionally, the enemy must not have any units standing in their office. If, by chance, your unit doesn't display anything in its AOA, then the unit simply cannot attack the enemy's office directly. Some units may also display every hall. If this is the case, then they may be standing on any of the 4 orthogonally adjacent rooms to the office. It is also worth noting that these 4 orthogonally adjacent rooms are referred to within the game as your entrance halls. When attacking the office, you will first subtract your unit's attack from your opponent's battery. So 3%. Once you've done this, your unit is then forced to teleport back to your office. If your office, by chance, is blocked when this would be forced to happen, you may teleport your unit to any of your entrance halls. If, by chance, all of your entrance halls and your office are blocked, you will destroy the unit, but instead of sending it to the graveyard, you will put it back in your hand, and the next time you would deploy that unit, it costs nothing. If, by chance, the attack would cause your opponent to lose all of their available battery, so let's say that my opponent had 2% and I attacked with Roxy for 3%, for 3 damage, your opponent is immediately eliminated from the game. Additionally, units may use abilities on their turn. There's a few various types of abilities, and some abilities will be tagged with certain tags, within parentheses. The most basic ability type you'll see has no such tags. These abilities you can generally activate at any time, though some may have a particular condition or rule that will state when they activate. Some abilities, such as the Rush Calling on this Balloon Boy, are passive. This simply means that if the unit is disabled on its turn for some reason, it still retains its ability. Some abilities, such as Roxy's Eye on the Prize, will have the display cooldown. I will quickly deploy Roxy to show. Cooldowns abilities start off cooldown and may be used as early as the turn after the unit has been deployed. Once you have triggered the cooldown ability, you will increment the counter in blue to match the listed cooldown on the card. This is how many turns you will have to wait till the cooldown is up and you may use the ability again. You are not required to use your cooldown at any time, but may choose to do so as long as it is off cooldown. Some abilities, such as Twisted Wolf's Charge, are tagged with, well, Charge. Charges are a little interesting. When the unit is deployed, the unit starts at Charge 0. Every turn past the first that it is deployed, its charge will automatically increment up by 1. When the charge counter on the figurine, shown in purple, matches the charge number listed on the card, the unit's ability may be activated. The unit's ability with a charge must be activated the turn the charge is completed, and a charge will never activate again, barring something resetting the charge, which can occur as a result of a couple of runes. Once you've completed your unit phase, you will then move on to your discard phase. Within the discard phase, if you have more than 7 cards in your hand, you must discard until you have 7 cards in your hand. So, as you can see here, I have 8 cards at the end of my turn, so I've decided I'm going to discard this Music Man. And now, I am at 7 cards, so I would end my turn and pass it to my opponent. Now, that's most of your basic phases and rules covered. However, there are some various miscellaneous rules that need to be spoken that may occasionally come up. First, a note about Siphon. Siphon occurs anytime a unit destroys another unit by any means. For instance, let's say my opponent has this nice Darkwater Endo here, and I've got my Twisted Wolf standing here. On their turn, they're going to decide to activate their Darkwinder Endo's ability Tidal Crash, which allows them to deal 4 damage to my Twisted Wolf. Now, 4 damage would destroy my Twisted Wolf. So, he's destroyed. Now, even though Tidal Crash is an ability and no real combat occurred, my opponent would still get the Siphon value of Twisted Wolf, which would be 2 battery because he's a medium. In other news and other related notes, if you may not ever remove tiles from the game if this would result in a player's office being removed from the board. For example, doing this would result in my office being disconnected from the board. Therefore, this is illegal and may not be done. Quick note about paralysis. There's one counter here we haven't used for anything so far. This is the paralysis counter. Certain game effects or abilities may cause paralysis. If a unit is paralyzed, it is very similar to the first turn the unit is deployed. They may not attack, move, use any of their abilities besides passives, or activate any effects of rooms they are in. Their charges and cooldowns are temporarily paused, and the paralysis will end at the turn that the paralysis was inflicted. So, if, let's say, my opponent were to inflict a paralysis on me on their turn, at the start of their next turn, the paralysis would clear. Additionally, units that are currently paralyzed may not counterattack. So if another unit were to attack them while they were paralyzed, they take the damage, but the opponent's unit would not. For any reason, multiple effects are chained together. For instance, if you play a spell and then your opponent plays a counter, effects are resolved in reverse order, with the last played card being resolved first. Because of this, if a spell is interrupted because, for instance, the target it is attempting to target is no longer a valid target, the spell is returned to your hand and you refund the battery of the spell. If a unit's effect is interrupted as a result of an effect removing its valid target, the unit must find a new valid target, regardless of how unfortunate that may be. If a room's effect is interrupted as a result of the target no longer being valid, then the room simply has its effects refunded. You will add 1 back to the room counter and refund any battery you may have spent. At this point, if you are currently playing the tutorial deck, this is all you need to know, and you can simply continue playing. However, some additional decks may run special units, which are size Beyond. Beyond units are a little unusual. First, when deploying a Beyond unit, it does not deploy in a room like a standard unit. Instead, it deploys in a special slot behind your duct, and is legally off of the map. Beyond units cannot move on their turn, nor can they be moved by force. At the beginning of each of your turns, your Beyond unit will generate one of 3 types of tokens, either Dread, Justice, or Sin. The unit itself will say what type it generates. As shown here by the marionette, it generates Justice. The tokens may be spent on the abilities, as shown by the parentheses next to the abilities. However, you can also spend the tokens on certain other cards within certain decks. Beyond units do not possess a movement, as they cannot move, so instead, that small flaming skull icon shows the unit's token generation limit. A Beyond unit may only generate tokens up to its token generation limit, and once it has generated as many tokens as its limit allows, it stops generating tokens. Beyond units, while technically not on the board, can still be attacked. If an enemy unit reaches your duct, they may choose to attack your Beyond unit directly. Such as in this example, with this Darkwater Endo attacking my marionette. A Beyond unit normally cannot attack on its own, though it will counterattack if attacked itself. There are some Beyond units that may break this rule. That's about everything you need to know. If there's any additional questions you have, or you're just looking for people to play the game with, you can press this button here to show the Discord link and come join the Discord. Myself, or Idiot Head, or several of the other players would be more than willing to answer your questions or teach you the game if you're curious. Finally, as a general note, when dealing with general rule conflicts of the general rules versus card effects, always take the card effects. A good example is the unit Glamrock Chica. Her ability allows her to attack and move diagonally, despite the fact that no other unit may do this.
Rockstar Chica, but...
Rockstar, sorry.